Conversation with the Geographer. I'm Mike DeVivo, professor of geography at Grand Rapids Community College. And today, we're very fortunate to have our distinguished visiting geographical scientist, Dr. Debarchana Ghosh, associate professor of geography at the University of Connecticut. Debs, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for the invitation, and I'm very excited to be here.
Well, you're so welcome. And as we conduct many of these interviews, I'll ask you to talk about your upbringing and what might have captivated you to pursue geography, studies in geography, and maybe go on to talk about your schooling and your education, undergraduate and graduate studies as well. Would you care to share that with us?
Yeah, maybe I'll start with my educational trajectory first and then say how I came to the world of geography. So originally I'm from India. I was born and brought up in the city of Calcutta, which over the years got the name change from the British side of being Calcutta to Kolkata. It is one of the 4 mega cities of India, highly dense population, lots of urban density, cosmopolitan. So that's where I'm born and brought up. I was very privileged to go to a school. My parents sent me a school where we had the instruction of teaching in English. And one of my favorite teacher from my school, where I did from class first standard to my high school, was a geography teacher. And somehow I used to always have an affinity for getting good grades in geography with less amount of studying. So I put more hours in other subjects and less in geography, but I used to always end up with good grades in geography throughout my school. And then for my high school, we have to take a track, which would be equivalent to majors here. So I took a track where one of my major subjects were geography. And again, one of my good teacher was a geographer. I was very good at arts and drawing. So all my practical assignments where we had to draw topography, do mapping and all that, I used to ace those in those assignments.
Were you assigned to do block diagrams too?
Not block diagrams, but more of charting the elevation from the contours on a physical hard copy map. So we used to draw a line, which is called a transect.
Sure.
And then we used to draw that, and those were some of our assignments. And then it came to our board exams as well. In India, we have to give our big board exam once in the end of middle school, which would be class 10 or standard 10. And then at the end of 11th and 12th classes, which is the graduation of the high school. So that's where I am. Then at that juncture, I had to choose whether I'll be doing an honors in economics or honors in geography. So from the school, we had to give exams in different colleges and universities called entrance exam. In my city, which is Kolkata, one of the very prestigious university and college is a Presidency College. Now it is called Presidency University. And I sat for entrance exam for both economics and geography, not knowing which one I will choose, but I got through the entrance exam for geography, and that set the trajectory for me into geography major and where I am right now. So that entrance exam in Presidency University allowed me to be among students from geography and other disciplines. And the culture there was kind of being trained to be in higher education, trying to read things more critically, trying to connect things from one discipline to another. make friends outside geography, which in my world today would be collaborators. So we could know each other's language, how we talk between different disciplines. So from there, I went to do my master's in geography in JNU, Jawaharlal Nehru University, which is in the Delhi, the capital of India.
Which is long enough, far enough distance away.
Right. The first time I stayed away, I went out of my home city, lived in a dorm kind of thing. We call it hostel there, not dorm, but it is the dorm, and that is where I was introduced to social side of geography.
So you had done physical geography entirely in residency.
Yes. It was all cartography and physical geography, looking into floods, because the area that I grew up is a very flood zone. It's prone to flood activities. But when I moved to do my master's in geography from JNU, that's where I was introduced to social side of geography, social geography, urban geography. And then in my when we had to take a specialization while we were doing our master's, it was health geography. So that is where I was first introduced to health geography. Then I applied. From there, I applied to different universities in the United States. And I came to University of Kansas first, Kansas State, and then I moved from there to University of Minnesota. So that's my trajectory of higher education so far, and my my groove or my concentration in geography.
Would you care to comment on the differences between the two kinds of institutions that you attended in India, aside from one being mostly physical geography and cartography, and the other one essentially enhancing your knowledge about matters socially geographic? What was the difference in the students? Was there much of a difference? What was there any discussion of the geography of gender? And as a young woman in India, were there many more men going to school as well? So I have a lot of questions for you. Maybe you can touch upon some of those things.
I'll start with your first question of the difference between the curriculum and the students between the two institutions. And I think it's a very good question, and I would love to expand on it. So my undergrad, which was in the Presidency College / University, we had a very not strict, but defined track. Just because the way the curriculum is designed in India, you only have 2-3 options besides your main subject, which was my geography. So I had the option of taking economics as my minor or math. I chose math to keep, I thought it will keep my brain sharp, the analytical side of it. I always liked numbers as well. The curriculum in geography was in my undergrad was based upon mapping, the fundamentals of mapping, expanding on scale, projection, the time. So all the fundamentals of cartography and map making and all that. And I'm so fortunate to have that base developed. And then we did more of physical geography side, more of wind erosion, water erosion, and all those. But when I moved, and I was okay with that. I liked more of the cartography and less of the physical geography. And our assignments were also, in a packaged traditional way. You'll have exams and all that. Not much of term paper or presentation. But when I moved to JNU, it opened up different avenues of learning. First of all, it was a semester system, and back in my hometown in Calcutta, it was like one whole year kind of an curriculum. So semester system, we had to be on top of our curriculum because, as you know, once you are lagging behind in a semester, you will keep lagging. So that was one adjustment of being a student in the semester system. And then we had this measurements or assignments where we had to write short papers, term papers, or critical papers, 100 words, 200 words, and then presentation. That was my first, in my life, I presented my paper. Before that, I never did that. So all this being more expressing what I did, more sharing what I did in terms of papers and presentations were a very different one. Again, I'm privileged to be part of that institution where I got that training. So when I came to the US, my class presentations, term papers were not new to me, which would not be the case if for all the students coming from India, if you don't have that system or measurements of your exams where you have to present. And another big side was a social side, and that is the nature of the university, JNU. It is one of the premier universities in India who are known for having critical, liberal education for all, cutting through any diversities, like they will include everyone there. So I had my students, fellow students from all over the country and from different religion and different caste. So caste system is so important in India. Let's say, let me go with the word important.
Go ahead.
Let's not be more critical or judgmental about it. It is part of it, and it's very important. So different caste who may not have had female students ever in their life. So I always have come from a very liberal background. So I had co-education, male and female students together, but not in the JNU. But everybody had that opportunity to grow, to learn from each other, learn from each other's background, learn from different diversities, which actually played into this whole realm or realm of social geography. Mm-hmm. So you know the lived experiences, you know the interrelationships of between different cultures, society, political system, caste system, and the religion. So this whole setting there was towards more social science, critical science studies. And that also created a solid foundation for me to understand the different intersections of the society and how they may lead to social justice as well as social injustice.
That's captivating, really, as you're explaining this. And you have shared with me previously that subsequent to some of your schooling, you had done some work with the poor in Kolkata, with the Sisters of Charity, I believe. Yes. Would you care to comment on that experience?
Yeah, so I along with my studies in school, in terms of extracurricular, I used to do painting and swimming, but my parents used to always take me to those places. I was sheltered. Mm-hmm. But after my class 10, which was the first board exam, one of my best friends said, let's go to a charity and see how things are done there. It was we were waiting for our results, for our final board exam results, and then the next set of applications in a student's life. So that we had 2-3 months. And so let's go. And so I convinced my parents that I will just go to charity of Mother Teresa and see how things work there. Maybe there is a voluntary work service we can do there. My parents said, yeah, go. You have a friend. I know that friend. I know her parents too. So yeah, both of you can go. That was a very good experience. right out of school, that how the nuns in the missionaries work and how they go out in the communities and take care of the vulnerable populations.
Well, it must have opened your eyes considerably and affected, in some ways, your interests in health geography.
Yes, so at that age, these words of privilege didn't mean much to me. I didn't understand what it means, but slowly, when I see the differences of me and the others, I was saying, wow, I never had that barrier. So then I understand that there are some structural barriers that might make this woman who's around my same age doing certain things in life or unable to do certain things in life, and me here trying to, in between one board exam result and the next thing in my career, I'm trying to see more experience, but this is her life. So that made me slowly understand the spectrum of privileges or underprivileged.
That's fascinating. So let's fast forward just a moment to your graduate years at the University of Minnesota. Would you care to comment on the individuals that you came in contact with there that might have influenced you and the kind of research that you did for your doctoral dissertation?
Sure. I made such awesome friends there. They're still my very good friends. I always reach out to them. So first I'll talk about Robert McMaster. He was my main advisor. At that time, Robert McMaster and Steve Ruggles, who is the director, I believe he's still the director of the Minnesota Population Center, they were working on the NHGIS, National Historical GIS project. It was a 5+ year funded from NSF. So that was the time I joined University of Minnesota. NHGIS, any geographer who does census geography, uses data would know it's a huge contribution that MPC, Minnesota Population Center, and Department of Geography did. So Bob was very involved in that, and then he went to the administration, so which led to a situation that he recommended I have a co-advisor. So Steve Manson, who works in land use, land cover, and different GeoAI and GIS methods, was my co-advisor. So both of them had a tremendous impact on my graduate career. They were a balance of hands-off and hands-on, which allowed me to explore different topics on my own, even though my dissertation was on geospatial analysis of West Nile virus in the Twin Cities metropolitan area, which is a health topic, but not Bob, neither Steve were a health geographer. They were more on the method side, but they welcomed for one of their advisees to work on health side, and they advised to the best of my, their way, and I couldn't have asked for better mentors. Steve is still, we meet every year at the AAG. We have a group. He used to call a team of good people. Yeah, hello, good people. So somehow it stuck to me, and I say that to my students as well, as my own PhD group and is expanding. So good people. So they had tremendous impact. Abdi was also a very very good person that I met.
Seems to have influenced many.
Yeah, Abdi Samatar. Yes.
Foreign students, I think.
Yes, he was the instructor for our professional development course, which was one of the required course for the graduate program. So he was also very influential. Then among my fellow grad students, Dave Van Riper, who works in the same lab. We used to all sit in different cubicles, and he used to work for the NHGIS project. And I still go to him if there is any GIS question and is any data question. So these connections will always stay. Then my fellow grad students, my fellow grad friends, they're going to be friends forever.
That's wonderful. You had a wonderful experience, and that is very important.
I'm humble and I lucked out, and I'm very fortunate I had these experiences so far, and I can still call upon those mentors and friends.
And so from the University of Minnesota, you continued to publish some things associated with West Nile virus when you went to Kent State, did you not?
Yes, yeah.
And would you care to comment on something that was particularly striking concerning some of your findings?
Let's see. That was
Yes,
it was a long time. I think from my dissertation, the thing that I take home is looking into the geospatial applications in health. That would be the first one that I did that applications in health work, and also talking to some of the health departments locally in the Twin Cities metropolitan area. I was nervous, but I put on my as best confident attitude I could. I went to those agencies in the metropolitan area and collected data, even though those were all secondary data. But I still had to say, this is my dissertation, that two, 3 sentences of dissertation, what is your topic? So that engagement with different health departments and mosquito control boards and how you get the data, the process, was something that stayed with me, and it helped me when I started to do work, more interdisciplinary work later.
That's striking, for sure. And so you were at Kent State. How long were you at Kent State?
2 years.
2 years? Yes. Do you recall any encounters with individuals that seemed to influence you during that time?
Absolutely. So again, moving from one university to another, you've got to do what you have to do. But there is a chance of burning bridges because you are moving. That was my first job. They recruited me, and excellent people in the faculty at Kent State. However, again, I would say that Dave Kaplan is a faculty member at Kent State. Great guy. He's still my mentor. So
devoted geographer.
Yes. So again, he was my former colleague. I changed universities. No hard feelings. Even now, I can, we could go for a meal after if I meet at a conference. Dave still writes many of my nomination letters as I move up the career. So Dave is another person who had a very strong positive impact. Jim Tyner. We didn't talk too much, but whenever the few times we interacted, it was a great experience. Again, I think if I meet with him, it will be a pleasant catching up with him. Then I mentioned Dave Van Riper to be a very good friend from Minnesota. On that level, Imariana Taylor, who is non-tenure track full professor right now at Kent State, a very good friend, like a really good friend that I've made, and I talk to her pretty often. So she made a very good impact on me as well.
That's great. So then you went to the University of Connecticut in, 2012?
11.
11? And you were a new assistant professor with a couple of years under your belt at Kent State. What were some of the challenges that you encountered going to Storrs, Connecticut, this agricultural field where someone planted an institution of higher learning?
Oh boy, am I sounding that I don't remember any challenges as such. It was, So that worked out well too. So I immediately contacted, Deepak Dey, who was the chair of the statistic department, and he was also a graduate from the presidency college and had connections. So somehow I was introduced to him, and he told me a lot about how the university works. So that really helped. Maybe if I hadn't made that connection right away as I landed up in Storrs, Connecticut, then maybe I would have faced challenges. So he helped me out. Jeff Oslieb was the chair, the head, head at University of Connecticut, and he hired me. He made it very, very inclusive, and I don't think there was a major challenge for
That's
me
wonderful.
starting up there. And
Because they were still a relatively young PhD program by the time you had arrived, and now it is, I would consider, a mature PhD program in geography that is rather stellar.
I would like to think that way. Our composition of our faculty roster has changed dramatically. Like when I joined in 2011, our full-time faculty was, I may not say the right number, but 10 plus, or 11, 12. So we are growing from there. But we have much more diverse faculty now in terms of demography, but as in terms of different research topics as well. As you know, there was one health geographer in Connecticut, but now we have 4 health geographers, which is unique in the country right now. And I'm very excited about that. If given the opportunity, I would like to bring all 4 together in a common thread. Yet we'll have each our expertise and niche areas as we work in our research agendas, also have courses planned or tracks planned in health geography. So, department is growing. We will have 2 new hires for sure from fall, one in GeoAI, one in climate justice and indigenous studies. Both of the new scholars, excellent faculty members have accepted. So it's growing. Yeah,
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. Shortly after you arrived, Ken Foote arrived to become head of the department. He has had a great reputation wherever he has been, both within the American Association of Geographers now, and of course in the academic institutions he served. Can you comment on his style of leadership in the department?
Absolutely. He will be another influential person in my career from where I am right now, sitting here talking to you. So he played a significant role in that. And this goes back before I joined UConn. Because while I was at Kent State, as you know, Ken Foote organizes the Early Career Geography Faculty Development Alliance. So in the year 2010, I was one of the members of the cohort from Kent State, and we all went to Boulder, Colorado, and we had, so that program introduced me to so many things that as I was transitioning from grad student to a faculty, so it's a solid foundation, and I will be always indebted that I got that opportunity and I was able to know things of how this transition works, the different things happens as you would be a new assistant professor from Ken Foote. So that experience will be mentioned. So his leadership in making that program has benefited many of us. We talk about networking. Mm-hmm. The networks that I made in that, that still stays now. All of us, 50 to 60% of the cohort members are doing wonderful in their career in the discipline of geography. You know, if I don't want to name all of them right now, but they are really good, and I feel like that program brought us together and kept those connections. So from there, when University of Connecticut was interviewing for an external head, Ken Foot applied, and me being very junior at that point, I was in the search committee, and it was an elected position. So, you talked about whether challenges I face. I think my experience at Kent State, knowing Dave Kaplan, Jim Tyner, and then having that program, the early career faculty, perhaps prepared me for those challenges. That's why I wasn't too lost or not that struggling. So I was in the search committee to hire Ken, and that was a very unique experience for me because he's my mentor, is still my mentor, but then he was then joining at UConn. And then after that, he was the chair. Every process, we learn everything from him. For example, he gives an opportunity to write tenure letters. So right now, I'm an associate position, but then he gives an opportunity to write tenure letters for the junior scholars. So that we get a training in that, we know how to do it. Then he looks over it. No, maybe letter should be written in this way, and he passes down his experience as to each one of us, faculty member, as we are growing in our rank, growing in our own experiences. So every day we learn from him.
That's very valuable. That's a very valuable experience to have, and it's not as common as it should be. That's for sure. Well, he's certainly a great geographer, and I hope to include him on this conversation with the Geographer program at some time in the future. Let's talk a little bit about your research. So you have engaged in health medical geography for quite some time, and you have first looked at West Nile virus, but you've also concentrated on health disparities, not just globally, but in smaller regions and associated with income, gender, race, and ethnicity. Would you care to comment on something specifically, either with communicable or non-communicable diseases that you've examined?
Sure. So after the West Nile virus work, I looked into food insecurity, food accessibility work in different communities in Ohio, where I started my first job there in Kent State. And then I also looked into Hartford. So that would be my starting point, looking into disparities in general. So at that point, I was looking into disparity of access of all communities, African American communities, Hispanic communities, and Asian communities as well. Not focused on one aspect of diversity, just looking into gap in the accessibility to fresh food versus non-fresh food. But from there, I started to read more on critical race theories and the history and how policies and structures, laws can have impact on the racial disparity in the United States. And I was thinking, this is my new area of reading. How would I read all of that history and then have my very, very in-depth interpretation of my research? But then I started to think, I have seen the caste system, the caste hierarchy, the social, very strict organization and hierarchy by caste in India. This is not that different. It is my geographical training that makes the connections and parallels between the a discrimination by caste and discrimination by race. So that made me feel a little bit confident. I can go work on this area. So as I started to do different health geography work, I started to focus on gaps of health outcomes among different vulnerable population. And currently, I'm working on racial health disparities of cancer outcomes among Black Americans versus white Americans.
Mm-hmm. Would you care to comment on some of your findings?
We have just started.
Sure,
well,
premature.
Right. The findings, we know from different studies and a vast literature that there is a gap, right, between the health outcomes among Black African American communities and the white. And right now, if you extend that, it would be among Latino, Hispanic communities as well. The research so far in health geography, in public health, or in health science broadly defined, has been showing individual characteristics of race, ethnicity, income, gender. But a couple of things were lacking. One was how intersectionality of race, gender, income can be a triple bummer, a triple impact on the health outcome. That has been started, and one of our studies are looking into that. And another thing that one of my current grants is focusing on to measure structural racism and discrimination from a policy side and from multidimensional side, not only the individual racism or individual discrimination, but how structures and policies have perpetuated more of this racism that trickle down to individual level risks. So these are some of the gaps we have seen, and we would like to show results in these areas where we want to show the association and causation between structural policies and systems that have led to more health disparity.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because these are very important studies. This kind of work is very important to ameliorate social injustice. And if geographers wish to engage in addressing these issues, this is the kind of scholarship we need to engage in. So thank you for what you're doing. It's very important.
Yeah, no, thanks for your supportive words and encouragement. And I like to plug in one more sentence about geography here. So when we study this impact of the systems and policies and laws, they are not in vacuum. They are shaping the neighborhoods and the places that we live, and the interactions of the person living in those areas with their neighborhood. And this is geography. This is the science. This is the geography, which is the science of place, space, and environment. So
and those interactions, the relationships.
Those interactions, exactly. And that is where I think where it excited me, and I could bring out my passion of geography to this, trying to understand how neighborhood impacts health disparities as well.
Well, Debs, we have just about a minute to go, and I'm going to ask you to reflect upon your background, your personal history, and the work that you do. You engage in advising graduate students and some undergraduate students. I'm going to ask you to consider what kind of advice you might give to students who might be interested in pursuing the same path that you did with regard to health geography. Do you have any specific pearls of wisdom you'd like to share for aspiring students in geography, and more specifically, health geography?
Tough question. Let me tackle the geography
Sure.
as a discipline first. So a word of wisdom understanding the value of the word geography and be more inclusive and understand what geography can bring. It's the connections and the interactions of different systems, and also relish the interdisciplinary nature of our discipline, and the opportunity it will provide a graduate student or even an undergrad student to know how other people from other disciplines work, and how geography can be a bridge between those disciplines and enrich yourself, your knowledge, your experiences, and bring it back to geography and develop your own discipline. So I don't know whether I addressed your question.
No, you did very well, and it really does relate to pursuing health geography as well, because the same concept, the same notion can apply.
Right, and however, be open and get everything, immerse it, try to see how you can bring back in geography, but also keep your foot very strong in your discipline of space, place, scale, what you understand by geography. So never step back, never be shy to talk about geography. So that would be my one thing. And about for health geography, any big health questions cannot be solved by one discipline. So if somebody is saying that only epidemiologists can solve one health issue, I think that is a very limited and narrow way of looking into it. And many of my collaborators are also realizing that from EPI side, from public health, that we have to go beyond social determinants of health, which would be individual risk factors, but also taking into the context and place where we live, work, and do our stuff and move around. So in health, for a upcoming health geographer, interdisciplinary is the key word, collaboration is a key word, and yeah, so that would be my last few sentences here.
Well, Debs, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. This has been a wonderful session, a wonderful episode of our series. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Mike. You have given me this opportunity to be here as part of the visiting geography scientist program of AAG, and it also gave me, as you said, what are the different thresholds in my life? This would be another event where I got to speak with wonderful faculty members from different types of universities and colleges, like community college, people who are working very close to the community, who are in 4 years liberal arts college. So this enriches my experience as a national counselor of the AAG, where I can see that I have gone out and have got the opportunity from you, and then I had this experiences of talking to them, knowing what is working, what is not working, what would be best moving forward, as we all have to work together, no matter what kind of universities and colleges we come from.
Well, I really appreciate you saying that, because as you are a national counselor of the AAG, you are tasked really with having this seat at the table where you are engaged in the decision-making, among others, of moving our discipline forward and being enlightened to the greater higher education landscape and noting what the public's perception of our discipline is in different parts of the country is very important.
Yes, it is.
And thank you so much for all you do, by the way, for serving the discipline as well.
Thank you for your support.
Okay. And this now concludes this episode of Conversation with a Geographer. Thank you.